kind of said, am I going to like study really hard or am I going to have a good time my senior year? And I said, I think I want to have a good time. I want to be sure that I hit all the parties everywhere. But I got to do this law school application thing. So I had all these brochures back in the day when there were printed brochures. I guess people just go on the internet now and look.
Fill everything out on the internet now.
Yeah. So I lined up all the brochures in the hallway of my dorm, and I had a contest. And everybody got to come by, look at the brochures, and vote.
When you're driven, the need to accomplish a goal is relentless. Hard work and ambition compel you to do whatever's necessary. In my work as a personal injury trial lawyer for 18 years, it's common to meet driven people. Those with drive can have different personalities, careers, or backgrounds, but they possess one common factor. Despite their passions, driven people want to surround and motivate themselves with other driven people. If you want to learn how to overcome obstacles by learning from others, then tune in here. This is the Driven Crowd Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into episode 37 of the Driven Crowd Podcast, fueled by Snellings Law. I'm your host, Scott Snellings. My guest today is Theda Page, an incredible lawyer who founded her own legal practice in 2002. Her unofficial title is the Reconstructionist. I think that's what she fights under, too, in her MMA days. She helps people going through difficult situations reconstruct their lives and turn the page to a new chapter. In her spare time, she likes to knit, read, fall down the rabbit hole of Ancestry.com, and put her toes in the sand. Theda, welcome to the Driven Crowd Podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we are so excited to have you here. So let me ask you about your intro. What got you going down the rabbit hole of Ancestry.com?
Oh, my goodness. So when I was maybe 12, we moved to Jacksonville, Florida from Michigan, which is my home. I was born in Detroit. And there was an old cemetery in our neighborhood.
Ooh.
I'm talking like headstones from the 1800s, old cemetery. And so I would ride my bike and go explore the cemetery because this was back in the days when it was safe and parents could just let their kids get on their bikes and go.
Not like that today.
No. And so I just cataloged every headstone in this cemetery. And I think that's kind of how I got interested. And I've always been a history person. And so I think I kind of got interested in family history by looking at this family that obviously back in the 1800s, they must have owned all that land where our neighborhood was. So
you were the totally normal kid just hanging out in the cemetery during the day.
Pretty much, yeah. Never thought about it like that. But yeah, totally normal hanging out in the cemetery. And I used to like to talk to my grandfather, my dad's dad, who everyone said was a man of few words. And my thing was, well, nobody knew the questions to ask him. But I was always asking him questions about the 1920s. What did the cars look like? And so he and I would have great chats about history. And now, as an older adult, I feel like I didn't ask the right questions because I was a kid. I didn't know the right questions to ask. So one day I'm falling down the rabbit hole of Ancestry, and I find my grandfather's grandfather, who was a lawyer in Hot Springs, Arkansas.
It's in your blood.
It's in my blood. Yeah. He was one of the founders of the Black Lawyers Association in Arkansas. Wow. So I say that's why I'm a bar junkie. And for people who are not lawyers, bar junkie does not mean that you hang out at the bars where they serve the drinks. That's when you hang out with a bunch of lawyers.
That's right.
So yeah, it's in my DNA.
Very nice. Yeah. A lot of people think of, oh, you passed the bar exam. Yes. As a lawyer, that's many times the only bar that a lawyer ever passes, right? So you got into Ancestry.com. How far have you traced back your ancestry on that?
In the 1800s. Okay. A little bit in the 1700s, but mostly the 1800s. Yeah. We've been here for a long time.
Wow. Very cool. All right. So you said that you grew up in Detroit, or you were born in Detroit.
I was born in Detroit.
Right. Spent some time there when I was doing GM work back in the day.
Oh, okay.
So I'm very familiar with Detroit. The thing that got me turned around about Detroit was you are north of Canada.
Yes.
And so anytime I'm trying to, go back to the airport on 75, I always have to go south to get to Canada.
Yeah.
And that always messed me up.
Yeah.
All right. So when did you move from Detroit to Did you say Jacksonville?
Jacksonville, yeah. I was 12.
Okay.
And my stepfather worked for General Motors. He worked for the Chevrolet Motor Division. So we moved from Jacksonville to Charlotte, and I graduated from high school in Charlotte. And then I went to Massachusetts to go to college.
Oh, so you're all over the place.
Yep. And then went to law school at the University of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you are well-traveled.
Well-traveled.
All right. So at what point in time did you say, you know what, I think I want to be a lawyer?
So I was 14, and I read a book called If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. And it's about a young man who was wrongfully detained in prison for a number of months, and he did not have legal representation. And that kind of intrigued me about maybe I want to do that. Maybe I want to be a lawyer and help people. I am not a criminal defense lawyer. And in fact, put it on my tombstone, she knew nothing about criminal law, because that's how I intend to retire. She knew nothing about criminal law. But I think that's kind of what drove me to do what I do now, although I had a bit of a path to get to being a solo law firm owner. But
and so were you already a lawyer when you were diving into Ancestry.com and found that your great-grandfather had been a lawyer?
I was already a lawyer, and he was a municipal judge or JP judge in the county there in Hot Springs. And I knew that he was Judge Page, but my dad was like, I don't think he really was a lawyer, but that was before the internet. So,
right.
And my dad didn't ask his dad, because probably if he had asked his dad would have confirmed. And that's what I mean by I didn't know the right questions to ask my grandfather.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, and as a kid, you don't know what to ask.
Right.
You're just trying to find the fun stories.
Right. I wanted to know about the rumble seat of a car and how did that operate.
So growing up in that many different cities, how was it each time that you had to move? What part did, I guess, having to make new friends and adapt to new places play in who you are today?
Oh, wow. That was hard. That was really hard. And so I'm going to go ahead and disclose my age, which women sometimes don't like to do. But we
to be noted, I never asked. I did not ask.
He did not ask. So we moved to Jacksonville, Florida in 1972. And 1972 was kind of around integration time in the South. And they weren't really trying to integrate. So my mom made the decision that I was going to go to private school. So I went to what is now called, I believe, Jacksonville Country Day School. At the time, it was Southside Country Day. And I wasn't quite integrating. There were between grades, well, preschool to 8th grade, there were, I believe, 2 other black students in the school. So I wasn't quite integrating, but they were very concerned, they being the school. And so they asked me a lot of questions about how do you think you're going to do? There aren't a lot of black kids in the school. And I told them, I'll be fine because I'm not prejudiced. So I think that moving around kind of gave me some gumption, and I did have to learn how to make friends and go to a new school and start over, and so.
So how did you approach that? I can assume during that integration period that there were other people there that were racist, that were not in favor of this. And so, when you had to deal with that, what was kind of your thought process?
I don't know that I really analyzed it from that perspective.
Okay.
It just kind of was what it was. And I do remember being uninvited to a slumber party by a girl she was disabled, and a lot of kids made fun of her. And she was having a party, and she was inviting people, and other girls, these mean girls, were telling her they were going to go to her party, and then they were giggling, saying that they weren't going to go to her party. And I thought that was horrible. And how could they do that to her? And then the couple days before this big sleepover party, she comes to me and she says, "You can't come to my party because you're black." And I thought, wow, I have been I didn't know this word, but I've been advocating for you with all the mean girls. And now I'm the one who gets uninvited to the party. And my attitude was her loss. So many, many years ago, fast forward to Facebook. So maybe 2008, I think I got on Facebook.
Okay.
She messaged me on Facebook. She sent me this long message. Well, first she was like, are you the same Theda Page I went to 7th grade with? Like, yeah, there probably aren't a lot of us out there. So yeah, that would be me. And she apologized and she told me how that impacted her life and how she was really upset because her parents made her uninvite me and how that had just impacted her life.
Wow.
So yeah. We never know.
It's cool to be able to kind of close a loop on I'm sure what was an incredibly difficult thing to have to experience. Yeah. But several years later, decades later, being able to close that loop and say, wow, you know what? That's really cool that it's affected her probably even more than it affected you, it sounds like, for all these years. And for the better for her. Absolutely. So yeah, it's amazing how much growth can come out of, circumstances, I guess, very unideal circumstances like that. Yeah. Wow. So, all right. You kind of had to develop that attitude of their loss. Right. Right. So what's the next step in that journey of, all right, you know what? It's these other people who have the problem. It's not me. How do you then move forward and create new friendships and new relationships? So I think I just kept that attitude. And so I went to a different school the next year. And that, I think, in that school, that's the Bowles School in Jacksonville. It's still around, beautiful campus. That was the first time I got called the N-word that I can recall to my face. I was standing in line in the cafeteria and 2 boys in front of me. And I thought, wow, what do I do? Do I beat him up here in the cafeteria? And interestingly enough, I said, well, I'm not going to tell my parents because they probably will be really upset. And I'll be fine. But they'll be upset, so I won't tell them. Wow. Yeah. So I guess fast forward, how old were you when you decided that you wanted to go to law school? Was it 14? Is that 14, what you said? Yeah, okay. 14. And so when you were choosing colleges to attend, I think you said you went to Massachusetts, somewhere in Massachusetts. Yes. Which school? Mount Holyoke College. Okay. And the first women's college founded in this country. It was founded in 1837. And that was the only college I applied to. All right. So you had your mind set. I had my mind made up. What was it about that college that drew you there? So I had decided when I was 10, so, you got to make decisions early in life. Yeah, when I was 10, you're an early decision maker for sure. I decided I'm going to go to college in Massachusetts. Had you ever been to Massachusetts? No, had not. Okay, fair. Yeah. Saw the movie Love Story only because this is when they first came out with how they rated movies. So that was a rated R movie. My mom didn't understand what a rated R movie was. So she spent a lot of the movie like, oh my goodness. Hand over the eyes. And they were at Harvard and Wellesley. And I really liked the cinematography in that movie. I thought, wow, these colleges are really pretty. So when I get ready to go to college, I'm going to go to a really pretty college and I'm going to go to a school that's a really good school. So I was on my path. All right. So I'll find a major when I get there. Just kind of, that's just where I want to be. Right. That's where I want to be. And then, 14, then I decided I'm going to be a lawyer. And so I applied to one college, early decision. Why waste your time filling out applications if you know where you want to go? Yeah. And you had to handwrite them, right? I remember handwriting all those college applications and I was just like, I don't even want to go here. Why am I doing this? Yeah, no. I'm about efficiency. Yes. So one application fee. Yeah. It's much cheaper to do it that way. Yeah. So got in. So I knew in December where I was going in the fall and I began my countdown. Okay. All right. And so what'd you major in college? I majored in politics. Oh, okay. So interesting. Most people say political science.
And I think it was either my sophomore or junior year. It was political science. And then they changed the name of the department to politics because the theory was that, well, it's not really a science. Mount Holyoke is really big on the sciences, like, those other kind of sciences that people do, like biology. And
the hard sciences.
Yeah, I don't know about that kind of stuff. So I was a politics major.
Okay. I don't think I've ever heard that before. I've heard plenty of poli-sci majors, but not just political majors.
Just politics. That was it. So,
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did you end up at Pittsburgh for law school?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So I wanted to be a corporate lawyer, even though at 14 I said I wanted to be a criminal defense. Somehow, I'm not really sure when, but somehow I said, I don't think I want to do that criminal stuff. So I want to be a corporate lawyer. So I looked at where were the corporate centers in the United States. And at that time, Pittsburgh was the third largest corporate headquarters. So I said, they say you need to go to law school where you're going to practice law.
Some serious foresight there.
So University of Pittsburgh School of Law. And what I did my senior year in college, I kind of said, am I going to study really hard or am I going to have a good time my senior year? And I said, I think I want to have a good time. I want to be sure that I hit all the parties everywhere. But I got to do this law school application thing. So I had all these brochures back in the day when there were printed brochures. I guess people just go on the internet now and look.
Fill everything out on the internet now.
Yeah. So I lined up all the brochures in the hallway of my dorm and I had a contest. And everybody got to come by, look at the brochures, and vote.
Very scientific.
Very scientific. So University of Pittsburgh had a nice brochure, and most of the people in my dorm voted for that one. So I was like, okay, well, if I get in, that's probably where I'm going to go. So that was
hilarious.
One of the schools I applied to because they ranked highly in the brochure voting.
Very important.
Very important. Yeah.
Well, and so after you got your acceptance letter, was it then just like, now I'm really going to hit up all the parties and have fun my senior year because I've already been accepted?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I think I just kind of said, well, I'm going to law school now, so I got to get ready. And
yeah, I remember getting my first law school acceptance letter, my first of two. And I remember thinking wow, this just got real.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a career. I just assumed that I would graduate and pass the bar exam and all that. But it flipped a switch in my head of, okay, that was this thing that I can't really say I dreamed about it because I kind of fell in backwards in the law school. But all of a sudden I got this acceptance letter and it was concrete. Okay, you're in. And
you're going.
All of a sudden, I don't know. I don't know what to compare it to, but it is. It's like a switch flips in your head, and you just kind of have this personality shift almost, and this new identity.
Yes.
That's probably the word I was searching for, is identity.
Yes.
And which can be dangerous, right? If that's all you identify yourself as a lawyer. But all of a sudden, it was just this. Okay, it's time to straighten up. It's time to get things in order. Almost like I'm being shifted off somewhere, right? But yeah, I thought that was a really interesting dynamic that I didn't expect at all when it happened. Yeah.
Well, there's a big difference between college and law school. University of Pittsburgh doesn't have housing for law students, or really, it's a huge university in the middle of a city. And so there's not a lot of housing. I think at the time there were maybe 30,000 students. So
wow, that's
a lot. So it was like I'm coming from South Hadley, Massachusetts, kind of like this ideal setting, college town, really small, and now I'm in the big city, and I have to find a place to live and get an apartment, and so it's a big deal.
That was a big deal. I stayed in the same place, so I was Baylor undergrad and law school, so I didn't have any of those issues. But it is definitely a different educational experience.
Well, for me, I came from a women's college, and then I go to law school, and it's like, what are all these guys doing here?
Yeah, these guys are just in the way.
Yeah, it's like, this is really odd. I'm not used to being around all these guys, and there weren't very many women when I was in law school.
Okay.
So that was a huge difference for me.
Okay, so you finished your 3 years of law school. You got licensed. Did you get licensed in Pennsylvania?
Nope, came to Texas. So
okay,
my mom and stepfather he was still working for General Motors for Chevrolet, and he had been transferred. In fact, while I was in college, he'd been transferred here to the Dallas area. So I came to visit and went to a cocktail party with them and met a lawyer and who had a firm, and I asked him, was he hiring? And he said no. And by about, I don't know, maybe the 6th or 7th time I asked him, he said, just come to the office Monday morning.
We'll find something for you to do, maybe.
Well, no, I think it was like, maybe if I tell her that, she'll leave me alone. But no, I showed up Monday morning. I didn't have anything else to do, so I showed up. And one of his partners who had the bankruptcy practice in the firm, he hired me on the spot. So he was busy because this was when the oil and gas industry was tanking. So bankruptcy was really a big deal then. And I used to say that you could not go to a cocktail party in North Dallas if you couldn't say, oh, yes, we're in Chapter 11. So it was very chic and fashionable to file bankruptcy back in the 80s. So
wow. All right. So did you have any interest in bankruptcy at all when you moved to Texas?
No. I was interested in becoming employed.
Yes. That is first and foremost. You need to eat.
Yes.
It's very important.
Very important.
So you get into bankruptcy, and I mean, I'm sure you probably had a general idea as to what it was. Coming from Baylor, I didn't take a bankruptcy class, but I know that like when somebody files bankruptcy, it halts everything.
Right.
And to this day, as a PI lawyer, when somebody files bankruptcy, it screws up our whole rhythm, and we have to go do a bunch of extra stuff.
Right.
So you had about that much knowledge of bankruptcy?
I don't even know if I knew it halted everything.
What's an automatic stay?
Right. For me, it meant I'm employed now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I loved it because bankruptcy is all about working deals.
Yeah.
Debtors and creditors work. What kind of deal can we work to keep things moving? And I like that. So I really enjoyed that and so thought, this is really cool. I didn't take a bankruptcy class in law school. I didn't really. I mean, I kind of knew how it was spelled, but that was about it. So,
and that can be difficult on some days.
Yeah.
And it's all federal court practice.
Yes, it is.
Which for those of you who aren't in our world, yeah, federal court practice is a bit different than state court practice.
Very different.
A bit more formal as well.
Yes.
I always know when I'm in a federal courthouse because they have the big wooden doors that are super heavy.
Yes. And a lot more security, U.S. Marshals protecting the judges. So, yeah, it's a different world.
And so as you got into bankruptcy, was it something that interested you, or were you just kind of like, I don't know about this?
I liked it. Okay. And I think that goes back to my desire at age 14 to help people. And that's what I do each and every day. I feel very blessed to be able to help people who are struggling. Sometimes something happens that knocks them off their feet, totally unexpected, and they're trying to figure out which way do I go. And so I get to help them get past that and move forward.
And so are the majority of people that you help, are you helping companies that have filed for bankruptcy? Are you helping individuals? I know the chapters mean something. I still don't know the first thing about bankruptcy. So 7, 11, 13. I think those are the right numbers anyway.
Those are the right numbers.
And so you said you deal with chapter
7.
7. And is that individuals? Is that companies?
It can be an individual or it can be a company.
Okay.
And in all likelihood, it's a small company. Sometimes really big companies like American Airlines or General Motors, they file a Chapter 11 reorganization. But for smaller companies, maybe it's an individual who started a business and they got hit by the pandemic and they had to close their doors and they just haven't been able to recover. And so they might put their business into a bankruptcy, and that would be a Chapter 7. Individuals can also file a Chapter 7. Now, if you're an individual wage earner, so typical wage earner means a paycheck, and you want to restructure, then you're going to file a Chapter 13. So think Chapter 11, but a little different.
Okay.
Individuals can file Chapter 11 too, but most individuals are filing a 13. So that's kind of my world, 7s and 13s.
All right. And so you're dealing mainly with individuals?
Primarily.
Okay. Yeah. And so you truly do get to see the effect that you're having on the individual, where I would imagine, when I represented General Motors and other corporations, I could do a fantastic job and get an attaboy, or I could do, a job where we get it done and get an attaboy, and it wasn't really that big of a difference. Right. Doing what we do now on the plaintiff side, helping individuals, we get to see the difference.
Yeah.
We get to see the tears of joy or the anguish, as they're going through different things, and you feel like you are truly a part of their lives. Do you have those same feelings?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I worked in corporate for many, many years. And so, it's really different when you get to touch a person and know that you are changing sometimes the trajectory of their lives, because they've been able to get rid of some debt. And sometimes it's a lot of debt, and they're able to move on.
And so we skipped over your corporate experience. How did you end up going from the bankruptcy firm that you started at over to corporate?
So I left that firm and went to another small firm, and JCPenney moved to Dallas from New York back in 1988. And most of the New York lawyers did not come to Dallas. What a surprise.
They thumbed their nose and said, we'll find something else to do.
Yeah, they probably had somewhere between 90 and 100 lawyers in New York.
Wow.
And maybe 12 moved. So JCPenney did a lot of hiring in 1988, and I was one of those people who got hired. And so I kind of went on the other side, because then I was representing the credit offices for people who had filed bankruptcy and they owed JCPenney money.
Okay, and so you were making deals on behalf of JCPenney on this side as opposed to the individuals.
Yeah.
All right.
So
what do you think draws you to making those deals?
So I don't really like to go in a courtroom.
Okay.
Because
you're in the majority of lawyers.
Yeah, you kind of lose control of the situation, because you can predict what a judge might do, but you never really know.
Right. If
you're making the deal, everybody's involved in making the deal. So I like that. I like people, and people they don't get to feel like the victim, like the judge did this to me. They get to talk to me about, okay, this is what you need to do. And this is what the creditor wants. And a lot of times for my client, the creditor is the mortgage company or the car company. And let's talk about what would be a good fit for your family and what can help. So
for someone who is in dire financial straits, right? Somebody who would be calling you up, what does that process look like for those of us who don't really have any insight into bankruptcy at all?
Okay. So for me, it's about having what I call a strategy session. Let's talk about it and figure out, tell me what's your income, what are your household expenses, what's important to you, what do you have a retirement? Have you saved for your retirement? How old are you? Let's look at how many years you have till retirement. You're not saving for retirement, but you're trying to pay your credit card debt. Maybe we should make some changes that way. So it's a lot of information gathering. I ask people for a lot of documents, because we have to put together their bankruptcy schedules and statements. And sometimes that could be a 70-page filing.
Whoa.
Yeah. So we gather a lot of documents. We look at bank statements, tax returns, pay stubs, just lots and lots of documents.
Do you have any kind of like a tax or accounting background at all?
No, I just like numbers.
All right.
I like numbers. I started balancing my mom's checkbook probably when I was 10. My dad was an accountant, so maybe I get it from him. I don't know. But, and my mom was a social worker. So I always say I'm kind of like a combination of my mom and my dad.
Yeah, you really are.
You
really are.
Helping people, and I got the numbers side. But yeah, I've always liked the numbers. And my cousin is my paralegal. Our dads were brothers, and she's an accountant.
Okay. So she can help you on the balancing stuff, or the hey, something doesn't look right here. Help me figure out this trail.
Yeah.
So for people who are listening to this, who are thinking about law school, we have several students that have reached out that they love the lawyer episodes. Why should somebody consider bankruptcy? Because I don't feel like that's something that a whole lot of people consider unless maybe they have a dad or a mom who are bankruptcy lawyers or somebody in the family.
So you're very true. A lot of young people don't think about it. And when you look at the bankruptcy bar, I mean, my gray hair kind of fits right in to our bar. We are kind of an aging bar. And I think it's because a lot of young people don't really think about like, oh, yeah, I think I want to help people file bankruptcy. But it's a great way to touch a lot of areas in the law. Bankruptcy kind of intersects with family law. A lot of times what drives people to bankruptcy is a divorce, and they've divided their assets, and sometimes they've divided their liabilities, or sometimes they haven't divided their liabilities. Right. One person gets all the liabilities, and so you intersect that way, and it's real property. A lot of people have property that they're trying to save in a bankruptcy, so you're looking at deeds and mortgage notes, and so it crosses a lot of different areas of the law.
Personal injury claims get tied up in those.
Yeah. Yeah, those can be valuable assets in bankruptcy.
They can be, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And I think what the bankruptcy world needs is a TV show that shows how glamorous the bankruptcy lawyer's life is, right? Because that's why everybody wants to go to law schools, because they see the cool shows of the lawyers doing the cool stuff.
Yeah. We don't really look that glamorous.
Neither do we.
Yeah, well, they think personal injury attorneys, you guys are like the ones on the billboards, and
not us. We're not on any billboards.
Not you
yes.
guys, but that's kind of the perception out there, and you don't really see that a lot with bankruptcy lawyers. We're kind of like head down, crunching numbers, trying to make the numbers work, and giving a lot of hugs and tissues. My job is to make sure that when we're through with our strategy session, you've got a plan, you got a roadmap, and you don't need the tissues because you got something. You're on a path.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable too, right? Because people come to you and they just the end of the world is coming, right? How am I going to have a place to live? How am I going to have a place or a way to get to my job? How am I going to feed my kids?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, once you kind of light that path for them and you show them, no, there's a way out of this, then all of a sudden they can relax and focus on keeping that job and on feeding their kids and on maintaining that vehicle to be able to do all those things. So it sounds like an incredibly valuable service, right?
Yeah. Or get rid of that vehicle, which you have the option to do in a bankruptcy. Like, you know what? You're upside down in that car.
Go park it on the lot. Leave the keys in it.
Give it back. Most people think, you're crazy. I'm not going to give up my car. I had a guy a long time ago. I told him, give up the car. And he's like, no. We went back and forth. Give up the car. No. 2 years later, he calls me. He says, you were right. I should have given up that car.
Yeah, you give up that car that's $1,200 a month that you're not paying.
Yeah.
But hey, people have their priorities, right?
Well, it's Texas. We don't have a lot of public transportation.
No.
So we do get attached to our vehicles. We kind of need them to get from point A to point B. So
yeah. And the bigger the better, right? Here in Texas.
Especially the trucks.
The trucks, the gas guzzlers.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of areas of the law, though, like bankruptcy, that people never really think about.
Yeah.
Maybe they end up in an elective class and they're just like, that's actually pretty cool. I like this. But I think the vast majority of people that end up in those areas end up kind of like how you did.
Yeah, you just
get hired.
Right, you fall into it.
Yeah, I have friends in construction law. They never thought about construction law a day in their life, but they love it because they ended up getting in there and they found that, hey, they had a really good skill set for it, or coverage counsel, which I don't know why anybody would want to do that, but some people love it and they're amazing at it. Appellate law and consumer rights and all these different things that nobody really thinks about.
Right. Yeah.
So tell me this. Are you a routine person?
I don't think I am.
No?
No.
Okay. Most routine people are going to be like, absolutely, yes, I am.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'm not a morning person. Okay.
All right.
So if you get an email from me at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's not because I set my email to send it to you at 1 o'clock. It's probably because I'm working at 1 in the morning.
So you're a night owl.
I am a night owl.
Okay.
And so I don't really think I have, other than Gotta have my cup of coffee every morning. Gotta have that cup of coffee.
Okay.
So.
Well, what about at night? Do you have some sort of like a nightly rhythm that you adhere to?
Nah.
No? Okay.
Nah,
So you're
I'm
just totally free flowing.
Yeah. I feel badly saying that because, you're supposed to
I ask that
be-
question to a lot of people, and it's about 50-50. Some people are very regimented. I tend to fall on that scale. And other people are not the least bit regimented. They feel like that just hampers them down from being able to jump on opportunities or do whatever they do.
Right. I feel like if I'd gone into the military that I would not have even lasted 24 hours. They would have been like, this one's got to go.
Like, first off, I don't appreciate your schedule. And two, I don't like being told what to do.
And I don't like the outfits. So, yeah, like that's not my color. I don't want to wear that. So, yeah, not at all.
All right, networking. You're a big networker. We are in one of the same networking groups, Provisors, which has been amazing. In fact, we were there this morning.
Yes, very early this morning.
7 a.m. start time is very early for you.
Yes, it's very early for the night owl.
Yeah, it's a couple of hours into my schedule, but I go to bed super early. So give me your top 3 musts for networking for people who are trying to figure it out. How do I do it? How do I do it well? Do I have to do it? Give me your thoughts. You don't have to be 3 points, but give me your thoughts on networking.
Okay. So I enjoy people.
Okay.
And for someone who doesn't enjoy people, and there are people who don't like people,
right?
I think networking is probably pretty hard. I'm actually, you may not know this, you may not guess this, but I'm actually pretty introverted. So
I can see that.
To go into a completely foreign space where I know no one, that's kind of hard. But you got to do it. You got to force yourself out of your comfort zone. I think in your comfort zone, there's no growth. And if you want to grow, you got to push yourself.
And it hurts.
And it hurts, but that's okay. No pain, no gain. So I think that's important to, and I think it's important to want to figure out who people are and what they like, and maybe make a connection with them. Go with your gut and get out there. If you're a young lawyer, I absolutely advocate getting involved in bar associations because you get to meet a lot of different lawyers from different practice areas, and you might find a mentor. Mentors are important, so you might find a mentor while you're out networking.
Did you have a mentor?
No.
It's tough. It's certainly tough sledding if you don't have one.
Yeah.
And it's tough to find a good one.
Yes.
Do you mentor?
I do.
All right.
I do, for that very reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me this. What do you look for in a mentee?
I look for someone who wants to learn and who's receptive to learning. And do we have a good connection?
So I've been approached by several people over the years, just wanting to have coffee or wanting to pick my brain on stuff, and I schedule everything, and so I'm always down for that. And in fact, I'm moving my calendar to a new executive assistant. I'm not going to have any control over it anymore because I always overbook myself. But one of the things that drives me nuts is when they take the initiative to set up the meeting, to reach out, and we sit down and they have nothing. They have no questions. I guess they just expect me to sit down and lay it all out, provide guidance. And I'm like, I don't even know you, man. Give me something to work with here. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to guide, but you got to show up with something. If I'm leading the conversation, something's gone horribly wrong.
See, I take the different approach.
Okay, let's hear it.
So they may not know what they're supposed to ask or that they should ask, and they may be intimidated. And the big step for them may have been reaching out.
That's fair.
And
that's
so
fair.
It's like, okay, I reached out, now I'm not really sure what. So pretty much I'm going to give you some assignments.
Okay.
Think about this, think about that. What about this? What about that? And I just like connecting people. So I have an intern now. She just graduated from SMU undergrad and is planning to go to law school. I never thought I'd have an intern, but I have an intern.
And here you are.
And here I am with an intern. And we're having the best time. She has zero desire to be a bankruptcy lawyer. I also...
It's a good thing to figure out.
Yeah, I also practice family law, and she has zero desire to do that. But a lady from her church connected us. So I guess she said, well, okay, I do want to be a lawyer. So I guess if a lawyer will let me come work, I will get to see some things. So we're having a good time. She's working and learning, and I'm connecting her. I have a friend who knows everybody in the world, and she's also a lawyer. She's married to a lawyer, and she's really good about mentoring people. So she lives in the D.C. area. So the three of us are going to connect on Zoom on Monday so that my intern can broaden her horizons and meet some other lawyers across the country.
And so what have you told her? What would you suggest in general on why is it so important that they start now in building that network?
Oh, wow. Because you just never know. I mean, you may, just like I told you about the girl from 7th grade who reached out in 2008. I mean, you never know when you're going to run across somebody again, or when you might want to connect someone to someone. So,
all right, I'm gonna completely switch topics here. How do you deal with it when something nasty happens, either at work or personally? Let's say at work, someone comes in and just drops a big, awful, hairy problem in your lap, and you feel that surge of adrenaline, and then what happens next?
So I'm kind of dramatic. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So once I get all of my, oh my gosh, out, then I pray about it.
Okay, yeah.
I ask the Lord, give me some wisdom, give me some discernment in this situation.
Love it.
Because I don't know what to do with this. And, go from there. Maybe I might reach out to, it's always nice to have your close circle of people who you keep on speed dial in your group text, other lawyers that you might want to reach out to and say, hey, got this situation, never encountered this before. What do you think? So I have a couple of those circles of people. Some are local, some, and we talked about bankruptcy's federal practice, so
right.
Some are around the country.
So hugely helpful to just have kind of I call it the brain trust.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a couple of different groups of PI lawyers. I'm like, hey, has anybody dealt with this before? Or hey, has anybody written a motion on this before? And
Yep.
we all copy from each other anyway, right? That's, by the way, that's a secret of the law. Is about 75% of what we do is cutting and pasting or borrowing from others.
Yes. You're doing research. You just want to examine how someone else approached this.
That's right. Hey, you're required to, in the best interest of your clients, right?
Yeah.
Make sure that there's nothing left that you haven't uncovered.
And in this world of AI, you got to be sure that if you're looking at something, it's real.
Yeah, you got to ask those people before they send it over. Hey, did you use AI to create this, or did you actually do this?
Right.
That's funny. All right. Well, I am getting the notification that we are almost out of time. So you're a big reader, right?
I am.
All right. Give me your 3 favorite books.
Other than the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin.
Yes. Beale Street, that's Memphis, right? Is that in Memphis, Beale Street?
It is, but this story took place in New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. Gosh, I have so many.
Start rattling them off.
Killers of the Flower Moon. I know the movie's out. I read the book about 5 years ago.
Okay.
If you haven't read the book, I think that should be required reading for everyone. That book is amazing.
Killers of the Flower Moon?
Yes.
Okay. Was that the new one with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
okay.
The movie's like 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Yes.
We went to see the movie, I think the day it came out, but we went to one of those movie theaters with the reclining seats.
Yeah. Get nice and comfy. You're going to be there a while.
Right. So that's a good book. Oh, wow. Black Cake is a book that I read recently that was kind of interesting. And I just like lots of different, I like a lot of business books. I'm always reading some kind of business book. Right now I'm reading a book on marketing.
I always try to have a couple of different books going, just depending on what mood I'm in. If something fiction, maybe a couple of different business books on different topics, maybe a nonfiction history book, something like that. But
I'm trying to read Think and Grow Rich. I started it in January. I cannot finish that book.
I listened to that one.
Okay.
I listened to it. It was really good because the guy had the accent and all that. It was good. It was very interesting. Definitely a different way of thinking. So, Theda, thank you so much for being here today. We're out of time, but so appreciate you being here and loved hearing your story. And thank you for all for tuning into the Driven Crowd podcast. We'll see you next time.